expenditure, planning all along, Mr. Speaker, to return after the election and demand more money. A shameless ploy to manipulate public finances for political gain. But the game is over, Mr. Speaker. The people have spoken. And now this government must clean up the mess left by that government. This government must clean up the mess left behind by those on the opposite side, their reckless mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, today we are here to pay some bills caused by the PNM administration, for which they incurred deliberately, but for which they failed to make provision to pay. Mr. Speaker, this is not just fiscal irresponsibility. It is economic and fiscal sabotage. And this nation of Trinidad and Tobago must not forget ever who has put us in this dangerous position. Mr. Speaker, in the Standing Finance Committee meeting 2 days ago, this country heard the former Minister of Finance shamelessly confess that the economy was in a bad way. Mr. Speaker, for 10 budgets, this is the same gentleman who budget after budget boasted that the country had stabilized, was doing well, that he had transformed the economy, even while he had full and direct and intimate knowledge that he was destroying the structural, social, fiscal, and financial fabric of our country. Mr. Speaker, I could read out the names of the budgets presented by the honourable member. I will choose only the last three in the interest of time. 2023 budget, tenacity and stability in the face of global challenges. Untrue. 2024, building capacity for diversification and growth. Untrue. And last year, Mr. Speaker, steadfast and resolute, forging pathways to prosperity. Absolutely untrue. Mr. Speaker, the member for Diego Martin, Northeast, knew the facts then, and he knows the facts now. But he chose to tell this country untruth after untruth. And that, Mr. Speaker, is a critical difference between that member as a Minister of Finance and this member as a Minister of Finance. That is the critical difference, Mr. Speaker, between those members on that side when they were in government and these members on this side when we are in government, Mr. Speaker. Because we believe that the country needs to know the truth. And today I want to tell the population, despite everything that they have done, be not afraid. Be not afraid, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, through you, Mr. Speaker. The road may be long and winding, and the task before us may be hard. But as certain, Mr. Speaker, as the day follows the night, the sun will rise again, and our country will be basking in the sunshine again. Mr. Speaker, early on in my presentation, I want to disabuse some issues that have been raised by colleagues on the opposite side. I want to address some misinformation that the Tobago PNM are sharing. And I have to say the Tobago PNM, Mr. Speaker, because right now, the PNM is split in so many factions, so many adversarial factions, with so many leaders, nobody knows for sure who is who. Even in this honourable House, Mr. Speaker, I am unsure of who is leading and who is following on those benches opposite. Despite the allegations of those opposite, Mr. Speaker, we are not vindictive to the people of Tobago like those opposite. This government, led by the Honourable Kamla Prasad Bisesa, is a government for all of Trinidad and Tobago. All. And unlike the PNM, we have openly expressed a desire to work with our brothers and sisters in Tobago and to ensure that Tobago gets a fair share of the national pie. Side by side, Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, for fiscal 2025, the then Minister of Finance promised the THA $2.6 billion. This allocation left the THA with very little for the development programs, for their uses, for their needs on the island. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to announce that the THA will receive an additional $134 million under this government, led by this Prime Minister. 32 million of this will be allocated via the supplementary expenditure. In addition, Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met with representatives of CAF, the Caribbean Bank of Latin America, and I am proud to announce today, Mr. Speaker, that this government is in finalizing arrangements for the signing of a US $15 million or $102 million loan from CAF to undertake several coastal protection projects across Tobago. Mr. Speaker, I am advised that these projects were identified as crucial for the benefit of the people of Tobago. What is shameful is that this loan was negotiated more than a year ago by those on the opposite side, Mr. Speaker. The PNM Minister of Finance refused to sign the agreement for more than 1 year. That, Mr. Speaker, is nothing less than pure vindictiveness and wickedness towards the people of our sister island, Tobago. But you see, that is par for course. I recall that a former Prime Minister, former PNM Prime Minister, threatened the people of Tobago that they would pay a price if they did not support the PNM in the THA elections. And that was the price that they were wreaking on the backs of the people of Tobago. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, has instructed this Minister of Finance to remove every stumbling block and to work with the CAF and the THA to start this work in the urgent future. In addition, it gets better. In addition, Mr. Speaker, every ministry and state agency spending money in Tobago on projects and programs will be required to liaise directly with the Chief Secretary, the two Honorable Tobago Members of Parliament, and the THA administration to finalize expenditures for fiscal 2025. That would account for an additional $621 million from October 2024 to September 2025. And, Mr. Speaker, for budget 2026 and going forward, this government intends to liaise with the Tobago Members of Parliament and the THA in dealing with Tobago affairs, Mr. Speaker. This is to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the elected officials of Tobago, the Members of Parliament and the THA have a direct say in the expenditure being undertaken by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. It will be what it should have been. And that will be done by this government, Mr. Speaker. Gone are the days when a Prime Minister in Port of Spain will call his contractor friends and business partners in Tobago to dictate projects to fill their pockets. Gone are those days. The elected THA representatives in Scarborough will chart their development. I trust, Mr. Speaker, that ends the political mischief and misinformation being peddled by those opposites. Mr. Speaker, under our Honorable Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, and her government, our brothers and sisters in Tobago will guide their own future development. Mr. Speaker, less than a week ago, in this very house, I heard a member for Diego Martin Northeast say, and I quote, "You will fail, and you will have a very difficult period facing you because of the facts. The Minister of Finance must know by now the challenges he faces." Mr. Speaker, at that point in time, they were talking about the challenges in the Ministry of Finance, the challenges in running the country, the challenges in dealing with the crises that they left. The minister, the member for Diego Martin Northeast, was boasting. He was boasting that the country would fail because he knew what he left. Ironically, the PNM members stomped their desks, giggling at the thought of the tragedy that they had inflicted on citizens. The member for San Fernando East, he ranted about devaluation, collapse, loss of investment, economic mayhem, anxious, Mr. Speaker, to create panic, fear, and further instability in the minds of potential local and foreign investors. That is their goal, to sabotage the development and the growth of Trinidad and Tobago. That is unpardonable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what manner of person rubs their hands in glee at the thought of citizens of our beloved nation suffering? Only those opposite, Mr. Speaker. That is reprehensible, and that is the PNM. Mr. Speaker, the last 10 years of PNM rule has been a decade of debt, 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 DEATH, and destruction for all of Trinidad and Tobago, except for the friends, family, and finances of the PNM. They spent a decade blaming Kamla, while they spent $600 billion on the biggest feeding frenzy this country has ever seen. When they felt that picking the pockets of taxpaying citizens was not enough, Mr. Speaker, they went on a borrowing frenzy. Mr. Speaker, listen to these numbers. The adjusted general government debt was increased by 92% since 2015. Reckless borrowing by the PNM racked up a debt of $145 billion. External debt alone more than doubled from $2 billion US to $5.48 billion US over the same period. That is a 167% increase done by those members opposite. Money, Mr. Speaker, that my government, our government, now has to find foreign exchange to pay. Under the member for Diego Martin Northeast and his gang, the Trinidad and Tobago economy contracted by 20%. That is the PNM legacy. They have raided the Heritage and Stabilization Fund 11 times in just 9.5 years to the tune of over 20 billion TT dollars. The energy sector collapsed by 12% under the PNM. The non-energy sector collapsed by 12% under the PNM because the energy sector plummeted by over 33%. Agricultural output collapsed by 50% because the PNM sabotaged farmers to facilitate the importation of food from their eater food friends, family, and financiers. Their legacy for food security, Mr. Speaker, is food dependency. There are over 48,000 fewer persons with jobs today compared to 2015. 48,000 livelihoods destroyed. Where's the PNM hotline for them? 19,000 fewer young people are employed today than in 2015. 19,000 less young people employed, Mr. Speaker. Under the PNM, our young people have been neglected, sidelined, and outright abandoned. A generation of potential crushed by PNM neglect. The verdict is clear, Mr. Speaker, under the PNM. 79% of businesses in AmCham TNT's 2025 Economic Outlook Survey. 79% of businesses surveyed under the PNM declared that they had no confidence that there will be economic growth. No confidence that there will be economic growth under the PNM. This devastating lack of faith reflects a decade of PNM mismanagement that has broken trust, stifled opportunity, and driven investments away. Mr. Speaker, it gets even worse. Net foreign exchange holdings have dropped by 50% under the PNM, from 10.5 US billion to 5.3 US billion today. Today, Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago has a mere 7.5 months of import cover. We have foreign exchange to only last this country 7.5 months of imports. Under the previous administration, Mr. Speaker, our nation endured a decade of systematic failure. a record high-breaking crime rate, peaking at 624 murders last year, neglected schools compromising our children's future, and a broken healthcare system, leaving vulnerable patients, including children, without certainty of life-saving treatment. Tens of thousands of elderly pensioners who have given their lives to build this country now have to choose between food and medicine, life or death. Every single social and economic and financial indicator has fallen over the last years. Every single social, economic, and financial indicator has fallen over the last decade under the PNM. They collapsed growth, drove away investment, crippled our energy sector, and piled unsustainable debt onto future generations, all while failing, Mr. Speaker, to deliver real progress. But these are just not numbers, Mr. Speaker. These are not just numbers. These are people. These are individuals. These are our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters. Our people, Mr. Speaker, are suffering. But, Mr. Speaker, it is not only that the PNM government has engaged in wanton squandermania, as my colleagues will show you, that we now have to pay for. It's not just that, Mr. Speaker. It gets worse. The PNM attacked and undermined every institution which this country depends on. For the last decade, the PNM deliberately sabotaged the Board of Inland Revenue, refusing to provide resources so that this country, this BIR, could pursue tax evaders effectively, Mr. Speaker, allowing big businesses to pocket $10 billion illegally every year. The member for San Fernando East admitted it wasn't the working class or regular employees dodging taxes, Mr. Speaker. The member for San Fernando, he said it plainly, and I quote, he said, "It is not the working class or the people of this country or employees, general employees that dodge taxes. It is wealthy business people. It is wealthy professionals in their practices that are dodging taxes in this country. That is where the corrupt practices are taking place," end quote. You see, Mr. Speaker, they knew who the tax evaders are. They obviously always did, and they did nothing. They did nothing because those who engage in cheating the tax systems are their friends, family, and financiers. You see, while ordinary citizens bore the burden of higher taxes, these elites exploited the loopholes with impunity. And rather than pursuing delinquent taxpayers, the former minister imposed more taxes, penalizing compliant citizens while granting tax dodging elites a free pass. Mr. Speaker, the Office of Procurement Regulator, another one of the institutions created by the UNC to eliminate the potential for corruption in public spending. In order to undermine its effectiveness in preventing corruption, the PNM, when they sat in government, gutted the law, clearing the way for multi-billion-dollar corruption and secret contracts that took place under the last government. Over $5 billion in contracts awarded by the state, the friends, family, and financiers of the PNM. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the Auditor General's report, you will find even more worrying issues, Mr. Speaker. You will find over $30 billion in expenditure that was unverified, could not be allocated, were not presented for audit, or were not placed in the vote books in 2024. $30 billion, that's half of the annual expenditure of this country, Mr. Speaker. That is alarming. And that is why they were so intent on not releasing the Auditor General's report, Mr. Speaker. I hope that the member for Diego Martin Northeast will eventually tell the country the truth about this unholy scandal. And when, because I may have to tell it, Mr. Speaker, thank you. And when the 2025 report of the Auditor General is released, Mr. Speaker, we expect to see an even greater feeding frenzy of corruption, where friends, family, and financiers of the PNM were handed contracts with no accountability, while citizens were struggling to buy clothes, foods, and access basic health care. All the while, the PNM were fattening their inner circle. Mr. Speaker, this media review serves a dual purpose. First, to provide an update on the state of the economy. That's what I just did. The update of the state of the economy is that we are in crisis because of the actions of those opposite. And second, to obtain Parliament's approval for the proposed amendments to the Appropriation Act 2025 brought by those members opposite. The reason we are here today, Mr. Speaker, is to seek a supplementary appropriation of $3.14 billion. And the reason for that is simple. We are forced to supplement a P&M budget. This is not our shortfall. This is the latest chapter in the P&M's long history of serial under-budgeting. Today, the government is compelled to seek an additional $3,143,983,761 in supplementary funding, not because of unforeseen crises, but because the former government intentionally under-budgeted for critical expenditure, knowing fully well that the bills will come due. Let the record show that what we are doing now, Mr. Speaker, is cleaning up the mess they left behind. It is about closing the gaps that the P&M deliberately left in the budget. That is classic P&M. They spent the money without any clear idea of where the money was going to come from. No proper planning, no sustainable financing, just reckless expenditure, mastered governance. What we witnessed under the previous administration was not budgeting, Mr. Speaker, but a calculated scheme of financial deception. Year after year, they passed budgets that are deliberately underfunded and then come back to the Parliament, cap in hand, for billions more. Mr. Speaker, I turn now to the fiscal outturn. The 2025 budget projected an overall fiscal deficit of $5.51 billion, or 2.91% of GDP. An overall fiscal deficit of $3.97 billion was projected for the period 1st October 2024 to 31st March 2025. However, the actual outturn of revenue and expenditure resulted in a deficit of $3.44 billion, of which $524 million, it was lower by $524 million, lower than projected. But this reduced deficit figure, however, is deceptive, Mr. Speaker, because it was achieved by slashing expenditure, resulting in the accumulation of arrears of millions and hundreds of millions that the current government must now pay via the supplementary. It is fiscal recklessness and financial manipulation, Mr. Speaker. Fiscal recklessness and financial manipulation. What the former government did when they realized that their revenue target was substantially less than budgeted, they simply stopped meeting their obligations. That is fiscal recklessness. In terms of the revenue projections projected for the period October 2024 to March 2025, the revenue collections was projected at $24.58 billion. Instead, $24.09 billion was collected, a shortfall of $485.5, almost half of $1 billion. This $485.5 loss in revenue is very likely, Mr. Speaker, a direct result of the under-resourcing of the one entity engaged in tax collection, the Board of Inland Revenue. Again, Mr. Speaker, the tax revenue of this country effectively compromised by the P&M. The data also showed, Mr. Speaker, that the total expenditure was slashed by $1.01 billion for the first 6 months of the 2025 fiscal year. The total budgeted expenditure for period October 2024 to March 2025 was $28.55 billion. However, actual expenditure recorded for the 6-month period was $27.54 billion, $1.01 billion less than projected. Who did this and why? That was, Mr. Speaker, a deliberate action by the then P&M Minister of Finance, a statistical conmanship, kicking the can down the road so that a new government coming in will have to find the money to pay. It resulted in the accumulation of over $1 billion in arrears owed for wages and salaries, loans, repayments, goods and services, etc. I wish to remind citizens as well, Mr. Speaker, that these figures do not take into account further billions owed in VAT, wage settlements, and to contractors which the member for Diego Martin Northeast failed to pay in his 2025 budget as he proceeded to bankrupt the country, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, we seek the Parliament's approval to supplement the 2025 budget in the sum, the PNM's 2025 budget, in the sum of $3,143,983,761. This is disaggregated as follows, Mr. Speaker. Recurrent expenditure, $2.865046 billion. Development program, $278,973,000, Mr. Speaker. These funds, Mr. Speaker, are necessary in large part to meet the multiple instances of deliberate under-budgeting or to meet obligations promised in the budget speech of the Minister of Finance, then PNM Minister of Finance, the member of the Martin Northeast, but for which no provision was actually made for new initiatives determined by the then PNM government, again, where no provisions were actually made. Mr. Speaker, it is instructed to note that until this government presents a full appropriation bill at the start of the new fiscal year 2026, supplementation continues to be provided under the existing or old heads of expenditure, with appropriate administrative arrangements being put in place to ensure distribution. The increase in the expenditure proposed is as follows, Mr. Speaker. Head 01, President, $1 million. Head 02, Auditor General, $4.9 million. Head 03, Judiciary, $50 million. Head 04, Industrial Court, $0.77 million. Head 05, Parliament, $26.9 million. Head 06, Service Commission, $1.5 million. Head 07, Statutory Authorities, Service Commission, $1.3 million. Head 09, Tax Appeal Board, $0.27 million. Head 11, Registration, Recognition and Certification Board, $0.64 million. Public Service Appeal Board, $1.3 million. Office of the Prime Minister, $128 million. THA, Head 15, $32.7 million. Head 22, Ministry of National Security, $13.9 million to meet shortfall under the contract employment payment for detainees' meals during the state of emergency. Shortfall, Mr. Speaker. Head 23, Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs, $89.5 million. Head 26, Ministry of Education, $296.1 million. Head 28, Ministry of Health, $728.5 million, again to meet arrears outstanding, Mr. Speaker. Head 30, Ministry of Labor, $55.7 million. Head 31, Ministry of Public Administration, $275.8 million. Head 37, Integrity Commission, $1.6 million. Head 39, Ministry of Public Utilities, $489.5 million. Mr. Speaker, this $485.9 million is to meet shortfalls in personal expenditure, goods and services, traveling and contract employment, and to supplement TT Post's allocation for salaries and other remunerations under budgeted by that former government, Mr. Speaker. Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, $1.3 billion. Head 42, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, $122.1 million. Again, arrears, Mr. Speaker. Head 43, Ministry of Works and Transport, $266.3 million to meet loans, repayments, to meet services, costs for NIDCO ferry services and the bonds, etc. The bottom line, Mr. Speaker, the PNM chronically under-budgeted critical wages, rents, and essential services. This mid-year package, Mr. Speaker, is the clean-up bill. Mr. Speaker, under the development program, supplementation has been provided for $278,937,000. It's been provided as follows. Parliament, $1 million. Ministry of Education, $1.5 million for the acquisition of laptops and to cover the cost of school repairs over the July-August vacation. Head 31, Ministry of Public Administration, $50 million. Head 43, Ministry of Works and Transport, $58.9 million. Head 82, Ministry of Digital Transformation, $10 million. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget was predicated on an average oil price of $77.80 US per barrel and a natural gas price of US 3.59 per MMBTU. Our estimation for oil and gas prices to the end of fiscal year 2025 is $66 US per barrel and $5 US per MMBTU. With this and other adjustments, we anticipate a decrease in total revenue of $556.7 billion, with an overall resultant fiscal deficit for 2025 of $9.67 billion. That is the P&M legacy, Mr. Speaker. That is their $9.67 billion. They need to take ownership of it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given the state of the economy at present, we are forced to fund this increased deficit principally by our borrowings on the local capital market, as well as by drawing down on existing multilateral facilities. Mr. Speaker, we will work assiduously to improve the revenue mobilization capacity of the Inland Revenue Division and ensure that further expenditure is provided to ensure that the efficiency, effectiveness of the Board of Inland Revenue, the Inland Revenue Division, is provided with resources to make sure that they meet their mandate. Let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, that this plan is an interim strategy aimed at restoring financial stability. It will be followed by a more comprehensive and impactful reform in the 2025-2026 national budget. Mr. Speaker, briefly the way forward. Mr. Speaker, congruent on our National Strategic Development Plan, we are already implementing the following suite of policy measures and structural reforms. The repeal of the TTRA Act, the repeal of the property tax, to ensure public safety and justice by establishing committees to recommend legislation on stand-your-ground policy and home invasions, the launch of the feasibility study on opening the Petrotrin refinery, the distribution of laptops to all incoming secondary students from September 2025, the refurbishment and completion of all long-abandoned schools abandoned by the former government, the opening, Mr. Speaker, of the UWI campus, the establishment of cauterization laboratories to address the rising incidences of cardiovascular disease, the amending of the Children's Life Fund Act to extend coverage to children with life-limiting and not just life-threatening diseases, the review and elimination of unnecessary state goods and services, including security details, Mr. Speaker, and abusive property rentals, Mr. Speaker, and much, much more, Mr. Speaker. Our key priorities include transfer pricing legislation. This critical reform will ensure that profits earned in Trinidad and Tobago are taxed fairly and in accordance with international standards. The Global Forum compliance, Mr. Speaker, exchange of information on requests, combined peer review, business levy reform, tax incentive, permanent establishment, Mr. Speaker. Oy, thank you. I have lots of time. No, lots of time. Mr. Speaker, we will be looking also at the qualified domestic minimum tax option, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are multiple opportunities presented before this government to develop some of the ideas we have been begging those opposite for the last decade. The Member of Parliament for Sipara, now the Prime Minister, has spent decades, in fact the last 9.5 years, 9 years, 7 months and 2 weeks, the Member of Parliament for Sipara has stood on that side, offering solutions, detailed transformation plans to take this country forward, and those opposite refuse to implement them. And they have the gall to ask us now where we're going to get the money from. We are going to put those plans in action, Mr. Speaker. Read the manifestos, read the UNC manifesto, and you get a clear direction as to where we will be taking this country. I repeat, Mr. Speaker, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have nothing to fear except the P&M. They will continue to be obstructionists at every step, as we will see here today. I want to advise, Mr. Speaker, that we will take no advice from those on the opposite side who have collapsed this economy. We have a plan, we know how to fix it, and we will fix it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to address persistent foreign exchange shortages, we will collaborate with the necessary stakeholders to establish a foreign exchange allocation committee to bring greater transparency, equity, and strategy to the allocation of scarce foreign exchange resources. We will be implementing reporting obligations for high-volume importers to ensure that foreign currency inflows and outflows are better monitored and aligned with the country's national strategic economic priorities. We will ensure enhanced investor confidence through the development of profit repatriation protocols, dividend safeguards, and investment protection frameworks, drawing on the best practices such as those that have been implemented in Barbados. We will explore foreign currency tax exemptions and investment tax credits as tools to encourage retention and reinvestment of foreign exchange within the local economy, Mr. Speaker. We will review the Trinidad and Tobago's network of bilateral tax treaties and work with our CARICOM partners to advance regional tax harmonization, promoting cross-border investment and reducing administrative burdens on regional businesses. Mr. Speaker, export-led growth is critical to building a resilient and diversified economy. Those on the opposite side have no clue how to do that. Fortunately, the citizens of this Trinidad and Tobago, my beloved nation, have chosen wisely, Mr. Speaker. To this end, Mr. Speaker, towards developing a resilient and diversified economy, we will examine the introduction of an export allowance and export growth incentive with a focus on high-potential non-CARICOM markets and target priority sectors including agro-processing, ICT services, and niche marketing. We will consider the establishment of an export proceeds retention facility, enabling exporters to retain a portion of their foreign currency earnings, thereby ensuring more predictable access to foreign exchange for reinvestment and operational expansion. We will expand, Mr. Speaker, our international trade representation, not the shows, not those issues that they have raised, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's so much more that we are able to do, Mr. Speaker, so much more. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, in the debate where my members opposite will be given the opportunity to comment, Mr. Speaker, going forward. Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I beg to move.
Honourable members, I will now propose the question for debate. Be it resolved that this House adopt the report of the Standing Finance Committee of the House of Representatives for the first session 2025 to 2026, 13th Parliament on the consideration of the proposals for the supplementary appropriation for the fiscal year 2025. Member for San Fernando East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, listening to the Minister of Finance this morning, it is clear that this government does not have a clue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, time and time again, we have been asking those on the other side, where will the revenues come from? To date, no answer. Also, members on the other side, we thought we would hear in this debate whether they had reached into the HSF to help to support some of this expenditure that they had promised those during the election campaign. Not a mention of it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have reliable information that those on the other side have reached their hands into the HSF, but they haven't announced it to the people of this country, Mr. Speaker. They haven't said so. Why have this debate?
Hang on a second. The constant resort to reliable information is something that has me concerned. If you're going to represent to the House that the information you have seen it, you rely on it, and there must be a reason why you rely on it, I'm going to allow you to continue. But I take that as a representation that you hold to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I retract. What I'm saying to those on the other side is that I'm asking a question. Have you reached into the HSF to support some of this expenditure, Mr. Speaker? I suspect they'll be reluctant to answer the question, Mr. Speaker, but the people of this country won't forget. The member is here today speaking, and he says that the former government left this economy in a shambles. Then he proceeds to say that there were only 8 months of import cover, Mr. Speaker. The shock and horror. Mr. Speaker, the international benchmark for non-energy producing countries for foreign reserves is 3 months, Mr. Speaker. For energy producing countries like Trinidad and Tobago, the benchmark, international benchmark is 6 months, Mr. Speaker. Trinidad and Tobago is at 8 months of import cover due to the masterful management of this difficult economy by the People's National Movement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance is confused. And I have to congratulate the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. I saw that the Prime Minister added a minister in the Ministry of Finance who actually has some governance experience, Mr. Speaker, because she realized that this Minister of Finance has none. And the gentleman needs all the support he can get. He is coming to this Parliament asking for $3 billion in additional expenditure, and to date cannot say what is going on. Then we have also talking about that when I spoke previously, that we knew who were the ones dodging taxes in this country. And yes, I stand by that statement. And that is why this government was implementing the TTRA, so that we could bring those persons who are dodging taxes under the tax net, so that the working class and the middle class of this country would not be overly burdened by excess taxation. And then those on the other side, the first thing they do is to eliminate the TTRA. That's what they did. Not only have they allowed their tax-dodging friends in the professional and business class in this country to not pay their fair share of taxes.
Mr. Speaker, 48.6. 48.6. I don't know if my colleague opposite has tax-dodging friends. He had confessed to knowing who the tax-dodgers were. But I cannot be here.
Okay, can we, whilst making the interjection, can we just put the hyperbole to the side? Member for San Fernando East. I'm not sure what you mean by tax dodging friends, but can you use a more, as I said on Monday, a more anodyne phrase to describe it, please? That does not give the impression that members on that side, or any member of this House, is friendly with or consorts with people who indulge in that kind of behavior.
Mr. Speaker, I would
you
never...
are skillful enough to employ more anodyne language to make your point. Please.
Speaker, I retract, but I could swear I heard far more derogatory statements coming from the Minister of Finance during his contribution. But Mr. Speaker, I may be incorrect in my assessment, so I retract, Mr. Speaker.
It's contextual. And I would urge you to be a little more cautious in that regard. So can we move on, please?
Yes. Understood, sir. Mr. Speaker, those on the other side are coming here. We have maybe just over about 3 more months left in this fiscal year. And if you look at the areas of expenditure, one of the largest areas is in current transfers and subsidies, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, the current transfers and subsidies are $811 million, 212,540, Mr. Speaker. That is in recurrent expenditure. In the development program, there's an allocation for $278,937,000, Mr. Speaker. So in the development program, that is where we invest in the revenue-generating capacity of this country so that we can cover our expenses. Transfers and subsidies, on the other hand, Mr. Speaker, it's just recurrent expenditure. And so, in other words, they are borrowing money to pay these expenses, Mr. Speaker. That seems to be the only language that those on the other side understand. Let me explain to the people of this country. In Trinidad and Tobago, in an attempt to reduce the cost of living to the citizens of this country, almost everything in Trinidad and Tobago is subsidized. We have one of the lowest water rates in the hemisphere, one of the lowest electricity rates in the hemisphere. Right? We have free education, free health care. All of that is paid for by the state, by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Speaker. And that's what we're trying to explain to those on the other side. When we have HGC housing in Trinidad and Tobago, HVIP starter homes, which the previous government had given to those, and many of them in squatting communities throughout Trinidad and Tobago, who did not have reliable homes, that was given to them by the state. That is a transfer. The previous government did all of that to try to protect the vulnerable in this country, Mr. Speaker. Vulnerable, Mr. Speaker. And if you live in an HGC home in Trinidad and Tobago, you are not paying the full price for that home. If the home costs $1 million, it is being sold to the public at $700,000. So every HGC home in Trinidad and Tobago is subsidized. If you are a first-time homeowner and you go to the Trinidad and Tobago Mortgage Bank, you can receive, as a first-time homeowner, a mortgage of just 2%, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because that too is subsidized, Mr. Speaker, by previous PNM governments that did everything possible under the most difficult circumstances to protect the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, we had implemented several policies in terms of generating additional revenues in this country to cover those expenses. And the first thing those did on the other side when they came into office was to eliminate many of them, Mr. Speaker. They have backed themselves into an economic corner and now want to blame the People's National Movement for their economic missteps. They were not handed any economy in shambles. That is nonsense, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago, last time I checked, is the only investment-grade country in the Caribbean region. The only one. Unless they want to come here to claim that the international rating agencies and the IMF and World Bank are also PNM party groups, then what we are hearing from the Minister of Finance cannot be true. Is our economy challenged? Yes. Has it been difficult? Absolutely. The past decade, Mr. Speaker, may have been the most challenging economic times in the history of this country, but it has been well managed by successive PNM governments, which try to stimulate growth within this economy while protecting the most vulnerable, and that is exactly what we did, Mr. Speaker. Even through those challenging times, where we had a collapse of global energy prices in 2016, massive collapse, and then in 2020, we had a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. We were still able to come out of the pandemic with our investment-grade rating, and were also able to show growth in this economy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, those on the other side, when they talk about a collapsed and crashed economy, are simply not being truthful. Yes. This economy is in no way collapsed. That is simply not true. The Minister of Finance is claiming that we on this side are attempting to undermine confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago economy, while he's coming here to say that the economy is collapsed at the same time. As I said, the gentleman is confused. What they are doing, Mr. Speaker, in a not subtle way, is laying the foundation for reneging on many of their ridiculous campaign promises, Mr. Speaker. They promised the people of this country things that they knew they could not deliver, and now they are paving a road to try to blame the former government. But the people in this country are gullible, and their eyes have been opened. They know that the TTRA, which was championed by the People's National Movement, would have been best practice globally to close a tax gap of $10 billion annually, Mr. Speaker. $10 billion. That is where the revenue is coming from. We also have transfer pricing legislation that we are ready to move forward with, Mr. Speaker, to also increase revenue collection by the state of Trinidad and Tobago. That was another initiative. Also, the Minister of Energy, during his time in office, also gave incentives to increase exploration so that we could increase production in the energy fields of this country so that we could gain more access to revenues from energy royalties. As I said previously, Mr. Speaker, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has two sources of revenue. It is energy royalties and also taxation. That is all. The first thing they did coming here is to eliminate $10 billion in additional revenues, which could have easily covered some of the salary increases they promised to the public servants of this country. Mr. Speaker, they have no intention of keeping those ridiculous promises. But let me inform the people of Trinidad and Tobago of the kind of economy that was inherited by those on the other side, because there's just too much misinformation in the public domain. Mr. Speaker, what those on the other side are attempting to do here, it's an expected expenditure of about $59.74 billion, a supplementary appropriation of $3.14 billion or 1.7% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, that means that we have an anticipated budget, anticipated expenditure of this fiscal year of $62.88 billion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if that holds true, that means that this would be the single largest budget in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And all we have heard from the Minister of Finance is coming here to celebrate accumulating more and more debt. That's it. That's it. The policy of this government seems to be borrow today, spend today, forget tomorrow. That is what they're doing. And that is no kind of sensible policy. Successive, responsible PNM governments have, yes, we have implemented deficit budgets, but we've always attempted to keep those deficits within a margin, within a band, so that we could have the ability to repay some of those loans. With an investment grade rating, it made it possible for PNM governments to access debt on the international and local markets at a relatively low cost. What the government is doing here now is definitely going to encourage an investment downgrade of this country by the international rating agencies, Mr. Speaker. It is going to increase the cost of everything in this country. Every single thing. Mr. Speaker, with this budget of $62.88 billion, which would be the largest in the history of this country, it also comes with a massive deficit, Mr. Speaker. A massive deficit of almost $10 billion, Mr. Speaker. I'm being distracted by the comedian from Barataria. Please assist me.
No. Mr. Speaker, I rise on 48.4 and 48.6. Member should know better.
Member for San Fernando East, could you withdraw that character? St. Augustine. Member for St. Augustine, I'm on my legs. Would you allow me to speak, please? Member for San Fernando East, kindly withdraw that characterization and move on.
Mr. Speaker, I find it difficult that I'm speaking here and I have to field insults from the comedy duo of St. Augustine and Barataria.
Mr. Speaker, the member is defying the ruling of the chair. The member is clearly defying the ruling of the chair.
I think it's time to put him out.
San Fernando East, could you do as I asked and move on?
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw. But Mr. Speaker, I remind this House, this is not Sesame Street and that is not Ernie and Bert.
Can you move on, please?
Okay. I am here to do...
Member for St. Augustine. Member for San Fernando East, as I've said before, the excessive hyperbole is unhelpful, unproductive, and really doesn't carry us anywhere. So let's just withdraw the characterizations and just move on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw. Mr. Speaker, we move on. In those on the other side, during the last government's term, we did a lot of work to stimulate small and medium enterprises within this country, Mr. Speaker. And let me state some of the facts for the viewing public. We had economic growth was driven by a buoyant non-energy sector, which expanded by 5.8% in 2022. Mr. Speaker, this is coming out of the COVID crisis. While many of our CARICOM neighbors were in the warm embrace of the International Monetary Fund, Trinidad and Tobago was showing economic growth of 5.8% in 2022. That is the economy those on the other side inherited that they're now claiming has collapsed. Mr. Speaker, that is certainly not the case. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying earlier, we had implemented several revenue-generating projects. The main one, of course, being the TTRE. The TTRE was meant to close a $10 billion annual tax gap. It was also meant to identify leakages in terms of taxation within the system and also money laundering. It was also meant to close that tax net to ensure that everyone paid their fair share, Mr. Speaker. If everyone pays their fair share, it means we all would have ended up paying less in taxes, Mr. Speaker. That $10 billion in additional revenues would have easily covered the appropriation that they're coming to ask for here today, Mr. Speaker. All of it was being done. We had increased production in the energy sector. We had property taxes, Mr. Speaker, and they've said a lot about property taxes. They say they're coming to eliminate that too, even though the Minister of Finance promised the entire country a refund of those same taxes. But, Mr. Speaker, the truth of the matter, property taxes were also meant to ensure that government expenditure could have been reduced, because those taxes were meant to underpin local government reform in this country, Mr. Speaker. It meant that if you are a property owner in Trinidad and Tobago and you paid property taxes, those taxes would be used within your very community to benefit you, Mr. Speaker. It would have modernized our local government system to ensure that property owners can have quick service by their statutory bodies. So if I needed to have a road repaired, it means that the local government bodies would have funding available to get these things done quickly. It no longer had to go to the Ministry of Local Government. It didn't have to go to Cabinet. It didn't have to come to the Parliament. It didn't have to go through all of that. The funds from property taxes would have been available so that those issues affecting many homeowners and property owners across this country could have been rectified. They destroyed that too, Mr. Speaker. That was also a source of additional revenue to the people of this country to cover many of these expenses. Mr. Speaker, the people of this country are not fooled. Those on the other side are now claiming that the economy has been crashed by the previous government. That is simply not true. If they knew the economy was crashed, why were they making those promises on the campaign trail? There was no secret. There was no secret here. This is not some secret government. All of our economic indicators were available at the central bank. All of the international agencies had them. It was available to the public. They knew the state of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. And they knew that we were in a good place. And that is why they made the incredible promises that they did. But they went overboard. And now they're trying to renege. They're trying to tack back, as we say in local parlance, Mr. Speaker. They came out here. They made those promises. And now they're trying to renege on those promises, because they can't keep them, because they keep shooting themselves in the foot. As a wise man once said, Mr. Speaker, economics will trump politics every single time. And this is a prime example of that. You could promise and promise and promise, but when it's time to deliver, it's a different story. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that this government is picking up right off where it left off in 2014-2015. We are seeing record expenditure by this government, and of course, record debt levels at the same time. And let me take a look. Yes, have it here. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, well, even as far back as 2013, we had government expenditure of $59 billion. one of the largest in the history of the country. 2014, $62.8 billion. 2015, $59.9 billion, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, huge deficits. In the past 15 years, Mr. Speaker, the two largest deficit budgets were in 2021 and 2020 during the COVID crisis. Mr. Speaker, those on the other side are coming here today to break that record. And let me explain to the people of Trinidad and Tobago what a deficit budget means. A deficit budget means that there's a difference between your revenues and your expenditure. And that difference has to be financed, usually by borrowing money. If your revenues are below your expenses, you have to borrow money to cover that difference. That is what they are doing. They are borrowing and borrowing more and more money, and with absolutely no plan as to how that funding is to be repaid, Mr. Speaker. That is an appetite for destruction. That is what we are getting from those on the other side. So it has nothing to do with any crashed economy. It has to do with poor planning by those on the other side. Our previous PNM government had been very careful to manage our deficits. We did not make any ridiculous, crazy promises during the election season because we are a responsible party and government, and we understood what the future prospects of this economy look like. And I tried to advise a member from Labre to keep his words soft, because very soon, Mr. Speaker, the membership of the labor movement in this country is going to realize that those promises cannot be kept and that they have been deceived by this coalition of confusion and delusion, Mr. Speaker. They will realize that they've been deceived. They cannot keep those promises. We'll keep a spot for Labre over on this side. Don't worry, you'll be here soon. You'll be here soon. Because there's no way the labor movement of this country is going to tolerate the abuse being foisted on them by those on the other side. We have a country where most of the tax burden is being carried by the working class and the middle class. We implement a TTRA designed to close that gap to ensure that the professional class and business class pay their fair share in taxes. And then the government, with the working class representative, decides to shut down that TTRA. That cannot make any sense, Mr. Speaker. It cannot make any sense. We're also confused by some of our friends from Tobago, the TPP members. We came through this entire budget debate and not a word from our friends from Tobago. It is almost... And anytime you're ready, St. Augustine, excuse me.
Mr. Speaker, my apologies. New device.
Mr. Speaker, it's the usual suspects, over and over again. Mr. Speaker, it's almost as if the UNC is speaking on behalf of the TPP in this chamber, even after months and months and months of swearing up and down that there is no partnership between the TPP and the UNC. Yet the members of the TPP seem extremely comfortable in the UNC benches. They sat down here through various bills, including funding approved for Tobago, for the THA, and they had absolutely nothing to say, Mr. Speaker. That has not been lost on the people of this country. They had nothing to say. Nothing about the appropriation. Was it enough? How is this going to be spent? Nothing? That can't be, Mr. Speaker. The people of this country aren't blind, and they see right through the shenanigans of those on the other sides. But let me move on, Mr. Speaker. Let me move on. Mr. Speaker, the last time expenditure in this country reached in the range of $62 billion, that was in 2014, even though there was a collapse soon after. Oil prices averaged $90 per barrel. Gas averaged $4.37 per MMBTU. Production was higher and revenue was $58.4 billion, Mr. Speaker. That was the projected revenue. Mr. Speaker, this, as I said earlier, this is maybe the largest single budget in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, but our international energy prices do not reflect a boom in our favor. Also, our production in the energy sector does not reflect any kind of boom period anytime soon in this country. So again, once more, where is the money coming from to cover these expenses, Mr. Speaker? I've asked that question over and over. The country is asking that question, and there is still no answer from those on the other side. The Minister of Finance seems to have a gift for speaking for long periods of time and saying absolutely nothing, Mr. Speaker. We are none the wiser for having heard him present within this chamber. Where is the money coming from? Please tell us. Mr. Speaker, as I had mentioned, 278.
Mr. Speaker, my apologies. 48-4, offensive and insulting language. The Minister of Finance uttered something directed at this bench. I'll ask him to withdraw it. I'm not speaking to you.
I must confess I did not hear it. I was distracted by my clerk. Like when the comments were directed to Port of Spain North, I will call on the Minister of Finance if he accepts that he made a comment in contravention of 48-406, if he would withdraw it, if he decides to do so. But I did not hear it. My clerk was speaking with me. So, in those circumstances, can we continue? Member for San Fernando East, you have 2 more minutes, unless you'd like your...
No, sir, it's fine. I'll take 2 minutes. This won't take long.
You won't avail yourself of the 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the current revenue estimates are predicted on the West Texas Intermediate oil price of $77.80 per barrel, and gas price at the Henry Hub at $3.59 per MMBTU. Mr. Speaker, the current energy prices that we've seen internationally are far below those figures. The revenues just are not there. Trinidad and Tobago does not determine international energy prices. That is done by the international agencies, Mr. Speaker. There's also the issue of transfer pricing, in which the previous government of Trinidad and Tobago had prepared legislation that was ready to go. But I'm sure these members at some point, if they're thinking at all, will bring to this House to be passed, Mr. Speaker. Transfer pricing, Mr. Speaker, means that many of the energy companies in this country, with their product, will have to sell to their partners or parent companies at international market rates, and not as they currently do at cost. Transfer pricing is based on the arm's length principle, Mr. Speaker. It means that a price should be the same as if the transaction occurred between unrelated parties under similar conditions. It would mean that this country would generate significantly higher revenues going forward from the energy sector. All of these things were presented to the people of this country for higher revenues, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I thank you for that. Have a good day.
Honorable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I propose to begin